So this is what I collect, seated Liberty quarters. And for a lot of the shots are not mine, particularly some of the real rarities. And you guys will probably find this all pretty remedial. So, you know, it's good we're recording it, so, you know, no pressure again. These were made from 1838 to 1891 in the 4 mints that you see up there. And what I thought I'd do is talk about kind of the origination of the design, some of the changes in the design, a couple of major rarities, and then a couple of the unique quirks about seated Liberty quarters. And then I do have some pictures of some of mine at the end, so you can indulge me with that. So Christian Gobrick is credited with the design. He was chief engraver at the Mint from 1840 to 1844, excuse me. He actually was hired at the Mint in 1835. The chief engraver before him, a fellow named William Neas, had a stroke in 1835 and was pretty debilitated, couldn't really do any engraving after that. So they brought in Gobrick, who was a Philadelphia area bookplate engraver. And from 35 to 1844, when he passed away, he really did all the engraving. He didn't have the official title of chief engraver until 1840, when his predecessor passed away. They kept this Neas guy on the payroll, even though he couldn't really do any engraving. So from 35 to 44, Christian Gobrick did all the engraving, and as I'm sure you all know, all the dies, regardless of the branchments, were made in Philadelphia. And despite his pretty short tenure, he was involved in a lot of the coinage, the Liberty seated coinage, obviously, the half dime, quarter, half dollar, and dollar. He was involved in the Liberty head gold pieces, so the 2.5, 5, and $10. The Flying Eagle small cent, the braided hair large and half cent. And although he was long since deceased, he was even influential in the trade dollar. So he did have a lot of impact. And although he's credited with certainly doing the final execution of the design, as I'll explain, it was really a team effort, hardly just himself. So when the Mint director, Patterson at the time, instructed the Mint employees that he wanted the seated Liberty design, it was kind of far from a creative epiphany. Great Britain had been using kind of a very, very similar design for quite a few years. There's a 1667 medal on the left and a large penny on the right. And you know, very, very similar, with seated on a rock, with the country shield below, and holding aloft, in this case, Britannia is holding a trident, obviously representing their dominion of the seas. And the big change, because seated Liberty is very, very similar to this, but the big change, of course, is that instead of holding a trident, she is holding a staff with a pileus at the top. And I know you guys all know that a pileus is, you know, the cloth cap they gave freed Roman slaves, which appears on, I don't know how many coins, just because it's become such an international symbol for freedom and liberty. It's on French coins and Mexican coins, and obviously our coinage. I was watching a YouTube video, and somebody had a 1949 Cuban coin, you know, pre-Castro, and there was even a little pileus on that. So it's really an international symbol, and it was very prominent in our culture. This is a 1791 painting by Samuel Jennings, early abolitionist. But you can see again the staff and the pileus. And obviously some of our earlier coinage before the Seated Liberty series. I've got to tell you, when I was starting out collecting, I'd see pictures of this, I'd look at it quickly and I thought it was a bow in her hair. Because obviously you guys didn't think that's funny, that's okay. But anyway, early coinage has the staff and the pileus. And I mentioned that this was a real team effort. William Neas did a sketch in 1835, and this is the chief engraver who had the stroke. Thomas Sully, who was a famous portrait artist of the time, did some sketches. You guys are actually very familiar with Thomas Sully's work. He did the portrait of Andrew Jackson, which was adapted and now is on the $20 bill. And of course, Christian Gobrick did sketches as well for the design. So the first coin that had the Seated Liberty on it are called Gobrick dollars, and these were in a sense patterns. They made about 1,000 of them between 1836 and In 1839, there's a number of different varieties. They're very expensive and highly sought after. The obverse on this was actually criticized not just because Gobrick's name is so prominent on the base, but they thought it looked too much like a medal. There wasn't enough on the obverse. And the reverse of this particular design, you recognize the flying eagle, which later appeared on the small sense that Gobrick designed. And the back has 26 stars, 13 large stars for the original colonies, and then 13 smaller stars for the states that joined the Union after that. And one of them, I guess you could call it a tell, that this was actually minted in 1837, despite the date, 36, is in 1836 there were only 25 states in the Union. Michigan didn't join as the 26th state until 1837. So, but anyway, this is the first coinage that had Gobrick's seated liberty design on it. I was going to talk about quarters, so I should do that now. The first quarter that had the liberty seated design was in 1838. They actually had half dimes and dimes in 1837. Without the stars around the periphery, 13 stars for the original colonies, and the seated liberty design very similar to the one on those Gobrick dollars. Obviously, the reverse does not have the flying eagle. This is the heraldic eagle that first appeared, as Dave would know, in 1807 on the liberty-capped half dollars. And they used that design, that reverse design, up until 1891 when the coin was replaced by the barber coinage. If you guys have questions along the way, you can ask. So there were some design changes along the way. And some of these are fairly small and subtle. So in 1838, 39, 40, they were making the coins. And the mint director brought in a new engraver to help Gobrick make liberty look, I guess the politically correct thing is, a little more graceful. And so this is what the original design is. And the slight changes that were made to the obverse is they put some hair on her left shoulder, right shoulder. And then clutching the staff, you see her finger is now raised on the latter version. And all of this is to make her look, again, a little more graceful. But the big thing is the drapery. You'll notice here there's the drapery, her gown stops here, and on the other one it extends past her elbow. And so these are called, the earlier ones are called no drapery, and then the ones midway through 1940 on are called with drapery.
Excuse me, Jeff, to jump back to the, you said the 30, he started in 38.
Yes.
Dimes and half dimes were being done in seated liberties.
In 37.
37 or, okay.
Yeah.
So they have a two-year variety of no stars, 37, 38 then. I was thinking
correct.
36, 37.
Yeah, they have no stars, and then the reverse doesn't have the eagle. It'll have a wreath that says half dime.
Right.
Yeah.
How come they do not, this would be totally different discussion about dimes and half dimes. How come they did no stars in 38 versus the quarter having stars?
I would assume, I don't know, but I would assume.
Because they added stars in 39 to the dime and half.
Right, probably for the same reason they didn't like the original Gobrick dollars. They thought it looked too much like a medal. And it does look kind of funny, kind of bare, the 37 dimes and half dimes. But that's, that's just a guess.
All right.
So that was the first change. The second change, this actually is one of the coins in my collection, was made in 1853. So up until 1849, the ratio in our coinage of silver to gold was 15.5 to 1. 15.5 ounces of silver equaled 1 ounce of gold. And that ratio was actually set by Alexander Hamilton. And that ratio stayed pretty much the same up until this time. But obviously in 1849, something happened, and that was the California gold rush. And there was also a gold rush, lesser known, in Australia at the same time. And that influx of gold, what it did is it kind of screwed up the ratio. So now the silver content of the coinage, our coinage, was worth more than the face value. And what that did, as you can imagine, melting, hoarding, or they were just shipped overseas. Because in the international trade, all the coins used, whether it was ours or other countries, were based on the silver content, not on the face value. So finally, Congress passed a law in 1853 allowing the mint to reduce the silver content. And to designate that, they put these arrowheads at the date in 1853, 4, and 5. And I should say they really cranked these things out like sausages, because in 51 and 52, the Philadelphia Mint made like 170,000 or so quarters. In 1853, they made 15 million. It's like a 100-fold increase. And then in 1854, they made another 12 million. So they're relatively common, so to speak. But they did something else in 1853, only in that year. And that is they put rays emanating from the eagle on the reverse. And they did this only for the quarter and the half dollar. They didn't do anything to the dollar. They didn't change the silver content. They didn't put arrowheads. Because the dollars, the sea-delivered dollars at this time were being used exclusively for international trade, where again, they were evaluated based on the silver content. So they put rays on the back, and what this did was it created what in my mind is probably one of the overvalued in terms of supply sea-delivery quarters, because it created a one-year type coin. So not only is this sought after by quarter collectors, but it's also sought after type collectors, because if you're putting together a complete type set, you've got to have this coin. They did the reverse happened in 1873 and 74. The price of silver declined, and so they increased the quantity of silver. And again, they designated that with arrowheads at the date in 1873 and 1874. In 1861, a minister in Pennsylvania wrote to the Secretary of the Treasury, Salmon P. Chase. So this minister in Pennsylvania wrote to Salmon P. Chase, basically saying that no country could be a great country or aspire to be a great country without recognizing a reverence to God on the coinage. This thing is updating. So anyway, Salmon Chase was a pretty religious individual. In fact, there's a really good biography out on him right now. And he agreed. And so he sent a letter to the mint director saying, we need to put something on the coinage that recognizes the importance of God. And so the mint director in 1863 sent him some patterns of what was going to be the 2-cent piece. And some of those, the mint director, some of the suggestions on that were such as God our country, God our trust. And Salmon P. Chase wrote back, he thought those weren't very good, and he wrote back his suggestion, which was, in God we trust. And so that is the motto that appeared subsequently in all our U.S. coinage, currency, and it appeared first in 1866 on the quarter on the back there. Sorry about that. Yeah, Dick.
Appeared first on the 2-cent piece.
Right, in 1864.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I
Quarter
miss-
in 66.
Yeah, the quarter in 66.
Yeah. I just want to say it was on the 2-cent piece first.
Right.
And then it went to the quarter.
Yep. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so I'm going to jump topics here a little bit. One of the peculiarities about this coin. I know you guys aren't specialists, but you're pretty knowledgeable. Anybody want to take a shot at what the grade of this coin is? Scott or Dan, you guys are the pros.
I do everything but you.
I'd be about, you want a number is defined.
I don't, whatever you want.
I'd be putting in a fine
I got a fine over here. Any other takers? XF.
Fine to very fine.
Very
What?
fine.
Fine to very
to
good.
fine.
All right.
I say mint state.
Okay. Nobody wins.
No.
That coin, I pulled off the internet, it's not one of mine, is an MS-65. And not only that, CAC says it's a good 65.
Oh,
And what that illustrates, I mean, this is an egregious example, is that a lot of these quarters are poorly struck. I mean, that one looks like somebody put bubble gum on the die or something. But these are notoriously poorly struck in the Philadelphia in the 1880s, 90 and 91. And New Orleans are all pretty poorly struck. And what they say the reason for that is that all the dies were made in Philadelphia, but they were always running behind. And then even if they got the dies made, it took them forever to get them out to the branch mints. And so the mint staff in New Orleans figured there's two ways to make these dies last longer. We either, make less coins, which doesn't make the treasurer or the secretary very happy, or we use less pressure, and we can make those dies last longer by using a lot less pressure when we strike the coins. And so New Orleans coins are notoriously poorly struck, particularly the stars around the edge. This is one of my coins, and I actually checked and got this. I got this in 1998, and it's just a picture I took with my camera, Dave. So you'll have, but
Pretty
this is
good.
like MS-67. CAC approved it, but you can see even in a high grade, the stars are pretty mushy. I kind of wonder if I would have gotten it now if I knew then what I knew now. But again, that's a very common element for the coins is the mushy stars. So, like every series, the Seed of Liberty quarters have their rarities. This is typically in the branch mints, and the two real key ones are from Carson City. The 1871 Carson City, they made a little under 11,000. That one sold for about $500,000. It's an MS-65 last year.
So that one's in your collection?
Yes, these are both in my collection. That's why I drove a Subaru down here. And then the real key of the series is the 1873 Carson City, and one sold for about $500,000 about 11 years ago. So those are the real keys. So very quickly then, to just indulge me, some of the pictures of some of the coins I've gotten recently. I've always liked the toned coins, and one of the things I was lucky on is a lot of the stuff I got in my collection I got in the 80s and 90s. And toned coins weren't a big deal then. I mean, they didn't sell at a premium, and now it's like ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, some of the prices you see are more than they probably should be. But these are just some of the stuff I've got in my collection that are toned nicely. That's another mint state, couple proof. And again, this is all a matter of taste, because you might look at that one on the right and go, that looks like crap, but it's a matter of taste. 71 proof, 75. And again, I had to steal the PCGS sticker there, so I don't have good shots, some of the others. Anyway, so those are just some, but with that, you guys have any questions?
Very nice presentation.
Okay.
Nice going.
Damn good presentation.
Oh, well, thank you. Dave, do you have a question?
Yeah, just curious, how you arrived at Seed of Liberty quarters as your specialty?
It's a lot of scientific research. When I was in college, I was rear-ended down in LA, and I was driving just a clunker. And the guy's insurance company gave me $400, and I thought, do I really put $400 into this clunker? And so, because I could still drive it, so I went to a coin shop, because I'd always been collecting coins, and the guy pulled out this beautiful 1890 Seed of Liberty quarter, had this blue peripheral tone, and it said uncirculated. And so that's kind of how I got liking them. I went in a week later, and the guy said, I made a mistake. I'll give you $500 for that coin right away. And he was probably just doing reverse psychology with me. But I figured, maybe it's a good coin, and bought another one a year later, and I just kept, kind of slowly adding to them. So, but it's pretty a pretty narrow field.
And do you still have that one?
Yeah, but I don't have a picture of it.
It's okay.
Yeah, I know a photographer.
So you didn't sell it back to him?
No, that's what I'm saying. Probably his reverse. I thought I got a great deal, and he's probably thinking reverse psychology. This guy will keep coming back because he thinks
Hey,
right.
maybe he was right, huh?
Well, no, it is a nice. I mean,
No, you did buy more stuff from him.
no, I actually didn't.
Oh, really?
I went back in there to look around, but yeah, I bought the next one a year later from Kagan's, if you remember that firm out of Iowa, a nice proof one. Yeah, but again, in the 80s and 90s, or even before, the toning thing was, a lot of people didn't even want them. So.